But one of the really cool use cases, to use your example of the OpenTable integration that I built out with a customer recently, was you can create, that automated flow, like you're saying, and okay, has this person dined with us before? Okay, so you have two branches there. Then if they have dined with you, what is their overall number of visits or lifetime average spend? Do you segment that out and treat it as a VIP?
Welcome to Captive Conversations, brought to you by Captive Wi-Fi. I'm your host, Adam Foreman. This podcast brings you the best stories from suppliers, marketers, and operators from our beloved hospitality sector. Now, let's get on with the show. Hello, everyone. Episode 72, and we have Matt from Klaviyo, and I said it right this time. It's Klaviyo, not Klaviyo.
Got it.
Kind of a way, hello. And thanks for coming. This is my second international pod because I literally have one coming out in a bit, which is nice. So very excited to learn more about you and obviously the platform. We are a partner, which is really exciting. So we've done some really cool stuff and we've got some really cool clients together doing some really, really interesting things with the platform. And hopefully today, our hospitality people that are listening can understand the power of what your platform does, as well as some very clever retail-y things that we can do in hostel. But we'll come into that. So the last guest was Charlton from a company called Hey Guest, and they've got like an AI chatbot stuff. And his question/frustration was at the end of a meal, getting the bill to pay a table, because there needs to be a middle ground where you can pay but still have the interaction. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting one. That I'm one of those people that I pay and I want to get out as soon as possible, but I realize the impact on the experience. And I've actually dealt with this recently, that one of the functionalities in Klaviyo that we can do with a lot of our restaurant integrations is trigger internal notifications. So for something like that, if you pay at the table and then it can trigger an internal alert, whether it's to the server or to the manager, to go to the table and just, kind of close out the visit, put a bow on it, leave them with a really positive experience. I think that's a really cool use case for using pay at the table and sending those internal notifications that a transaction has occurred, because I've learned a lot working internationally. Pay at the table is not as prevalent in the States, but I've learned a lot about that. So I think it's a really interesting point of like, how do you tie that all together at the end of a visit?
Yeah, I love that. If you're able to take that data point out and trigger it, I think there's a lot of conversational points about putting the customer first, having that interaction. Hospitality is different in every other country, right? American hospitality is unbelievable. We've got some amazing restaurants here with amazing hospitality as well. I think you're right. I'd love to see more of that automation. Like you're not teeing into the product, but stuff like, on arrival, different data points. There's so much you can do now. Just the challenges of how you get it to that server, how you get it to the person. So it's really interesting on that. And yeah, I like that idea. Trigger after pay and then send that notification. So then at least someone knows to go and do that last piece of hand holding, or triage, whatever it might be. Okay. Second question. What are your thoughts on AI chat helping businesses reduce the noise?
I think it's a huge advantage. I mean, it totally changes the game. Now that you're able to actually solve these customer issues on the simpler side very quickly and efficiently, that's amazing for the customer experience. But more broadly thinking about it, what you're actually seeing is now you can have your team focusing on higher priority requests and getting deeper in the relationships that are actually driving value for the brand. So I think AI within the chatbot context is huge in terms of efficiency. And then where we're baking it into parts of Klaviyo that actually helps speed up the build out of those strategies, where you can put in natural language, hey, I want an automated flow to look like this, or a segment that looks like this, and get that framework and adjust it from there as needed. But yeah, I think all of these things are going to allow people to focus more on truly valuable relationship building areas and moving away from a lot of the tactical work that takes up time.
Yeah, I was in Technology for Marketing was a show that was on a couple of weeks ago. You guys have a very big stand there in Excel, and they had like a AI stage, and I just happened to walk past, and it was like I think I'm trying to remember now. It was something like trying to make more human interaction, basically make it feel more human. And it was a massive panel. I've never seen so many people like sitting there listening, having to utilize those tools to make it a bit more personable
Mhm.
without having to feel it. That is definitely worth doing. Okay, so
Absolutely.
standard questions. Best hospitality experience.
From like a consumer standpoint, like how I feel like it.
Something that in your mindset you've been to that kicked the sort of that remembering point, something that picked in your mind that you've been to and you go, that is the best experience.
Yeah, I think it was probably from our honeymoon trip that I did with my wife going to Indonesia when we were going up into Ubud, staying at the Four Seasons. Just not something I would typically do, definitely a honeymoon type experience, but just the thoughtfulness from the beginning of the booking journey all the way to arranging the shuttle to make sure that you're getting to the hotel easily, coming in late at night, and then just the overall experience of, walking you in and the way that they treat every interaction is meaningful, just at a level that I had never seen, and how engaged all of the staff are there. I think those types of experiences really cement within people what the value of a brand is. It doesn't have to be, something at that level. I've stayed at boutique hotels, in random places where you still get that same level. But I think the attention to detail and focusing on like what the guest cares about. And then the last thing I'll say is like when they're sending the pre-arrival communications, capturing as much about like the preferences of what a guest cares about are super important. Being able to tell them, I might not care about, a hiking trip that they have through the hotel, but I want to take a cooking class or something while we're there, like a wellness practice. That type of stuff to me makes all the difference from the moment that you're booking, getting excited and getting there, and then carrying on throughout the stay.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I am just in awe of how hotels do it consistently. It's just everyone I speak to are talking about just the more and more things that I spoke to someone the other day. He literally just came out of a taxi and they knew who he was because it was nearish in time that he was going to be checking in, and they said his name and they walked him through, and then and the whole flow of that communication was just seamless. It makes your stay loads better. I think that there are hotels are definitely experts, not all hotels, but a lot of hotels are definitely experts in that field. Okay, best hospitality tech, but no self noms. So no, not your platform, unfortunately. Something you've used, maybe.
I think with the work that I've been doing a lot recently, we've launched 2 integrations now with Cloudbeds and Muse. The reasons that we are gravitating towards them is because of their open ecosystem and their philosophy around working with other technologies. A third one that I've been working closely with recently is Olive, which is a more modern booking solution that's mimicking a lot of what Shopify does well in terms of cart abandonment and capturing like unique IDs at the original booking point. But all three of those share a similarity where they are taking an approach that we're accustomed to, and we provide a Klaviyo of having this open ecosystem. We're not trying to lock you in with an all-in-one suite. None of those three platforms I've mentioned, are doing that. And I think that's what, modern brands are looking for. And especially as they have, marketers or other operational people come from another background where that is more common, like retail and e-commerce, they don't want to be locked into tools. They want to be really thoughtful about the tech stacks they're creating. So I think those three over the past year and the work that I've been doing, like that's what stands out as a priority for us, and knowing what value that adds back to hospitality brands.
Yeah, I'll check out Olive. I haven't heard of it. That sounds awesome. Like with the
Yeah,
Shopify for hotels on the booking, it's just it's like a music to my ears. Some of the tools out there are amazing, but there's definitely a space for more, right? That takes on the other end. Okay, so we sort of go back in time now of like the early doors of where your journey began. So I'll let you hit it off. Look, I do often ask questions if anyone, because obviously we're sort of hospitality focused. Did you do any? Did you happen to when you were at college or anything like that? Did you work in any hospitality at all? Did you get into anything like working and stuff?
not specifically. There was a time I thought I was going to, but I did my undergrad at the University of Central Florida, and they have one of the largest hospitality schools in the world. So I was around a lot of hospitality people. The college is in Orlando, so I was around a lot of that. But I did actually work during college for Anheuser-Busch at SeaWorld, which they own, doing, beer tours and programs there. So it was the closest that I was into it, but I was always around it a lot. And I grew up
Yeah.
in a resort town. So yeah, a lot of experience around it. So getting to work more closely in this space, coming at it from a consumer standpoint, and my experiences there has definitely made it more tangible and exciting to get deeper into and help brands solve their problems.
So where did the journey begin in regards? Because I mean, it says here on my lovely ChatGPT assistant was like, your career is pretty interesting, from Fortune 500 marketing roles to leading partnerships with Klaviyo. It was like, what first drew you into data-driven marketing and CRM?
Yeah, I think again from a consumer perspective, I'm a pretty difficult consumer, I would say, when it comes to marketers and their target, because I always had the sense like I was ignoring emails at the time because you're getting messages that aren't personalized. I might have bought a gift for somebody, but now I'm getting products that are totally unrelated to me. And so when Klaviyo originally reached out and started talking about, the value of first party data and not relying on, social ad networks and just kind of this, broad based scalable marketing that might not be relevant, that really got me interested to go deeper into this. And ultimately, one of the big reasons from a product and like philosophy standpoint of what drove me, to be very excited to work here. And yeah, it's actually 7 years this week. So I'd say it's gone pretty well.
That is a nice CV. So I'll give you props for that one. I mean, to be fair, you must have seen so much change in 7 years, like the landscape of everything. That is super interesting. Um, I didn't ask the question, so I'm going to throw it at you anyway. What are the major changes you've seen since 2018? Obviously, except for AI and that sort of jazz, that's all pretty nice. What's the major change you've seen in the platform?
Yeah, I think coming here originally, Klaviyo was basically known as an email tool. We had analytics and things to support that, but people knew us as an email tool. And the thing that people now know, but haven't known up until recently, is that the transition towards being a unified data platform and a B2C CRM was always there and always the intention. It might not have been talked about very broadly, but now the world is actually seeing what that means. And that all started back with the foundational data layer of Klaviyo. Our CEO was working at the time before founding Klaviyo at a big company that processed and segmented data for large enterprise brands. Things that would take up to a week to do now what Klaviyo can segment in seconds. And so from day one, this was built in a way to scale and continue helping brands have personalization at scale. And so I think that's the biggest evolution. We've added on SMS since then, push notifications, reviews, all of those are channels, but they're powered by what Klaviyo built at its core infrastructure. And that's ultimately like what the secret sauce is to enable us to do these things. So I think now that the world has finally got to see that, it's really exciting to still be here and see that vision come to fruition for everybody to be able to take advantage of.
So, I mean, listen, for me, when I always hear Klaviyo, Shopify is like a thing that's like screaming in my back of like when I speak to people. Have you always been open, or was that been something that you've worked towards? Was that like an initial ethos is let's be open, let people plug in?
Yep, definitely part of the ethos. I mean, being that we started the relationship early on and focused on Shopify, that is how they were approaching it. That was the problem that they were solving, and Klaviyo also wanted to solve, like I was saying earlier. Locking people into an all-in-one product suite just isn't viable today. There's too many
Mm.
great tools out there. There's things that stitch together that work for some brands and not others. And I think that's why we continue to have, a huge open marketplace for developers with almost 400 apps existing today. And all of that then ends up powering a better brand experience and giving them the data they need to take action on. And so, yeah, I mean, it's core to how we believe that people should have access to their data to make use of it, and why we make it so easy for you to get data into Klaviyo and take advantage of it.
So, listen, we're talking about the platform now. Going back to like the beginning of it. So the CEO that built it needed something. The CEO basically found a problem to fix. I hate the word problem, but basically they found a problem to fix, and they fixed the problem and then layered all the other things on top of it. Was it always originally? Was it always a retail focused product, or did it just fall into?
Yeah, it was always retail focused, and that was his background. And then he was, testing out things from his own personal use case, people that he knew in the area, that problems they were trying to solve. So that was why this focus of being a B2C focused CRM is so key, because there is a different type of relationship. And we're even seeing it over my time here. There are a lot of B2B brands that are embracing Klaviyo just because changing of like the buying process, like that sales cycle, because you carry obviously your personal experiences and you're treating treating those types of sales cycles a little bit differently as well. So it's always been focused on ultimately how are we driving revenue and value for our brands using Klaviyo, and how do we support that the best we can through the product.
Nice. I think there's one of the pieces that I don't know if we touched on, which was that were there any milestones on the shifts that really changed the game from early doors to now?
Yeah, I think it was just the evolution of like how e-commerce was taking off and like the position and timing we were at and bringing what the market was looking for. And then obviously COVID was another, huge launch pad where people were shopping more online and getting to experience this. And now you kind of set that bar as a certain expectation of for what you want for personalization. And so there's really no going back from there. It's just how do you continue to personalize at scale and deliver on the right experiences at the right time for customers.
Did Klaviyo have a massive increase during the pandemic? Is that something that you saw? Because obviously everyone went to like literally every brand. I mean, we work with like Grind coffee company who you also work with. I think most of the coffee companies will have the platform, to be honest with you. But did you see a massive influx, like a massive T? From like because the first thing people needed to do was iterate, change, and push. It's one of the things that we also saw is that people were forced to change. They were forced to look at what other things are there. You must have seen a huge curve during that period.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we were having strong performance leading into that. Obviously, there was that dip around like March, April of that year for everybody as, people kind of just shut down budgets, try to like sort out where they were in their plan going forward. But yeah, from there it continued to take off. I think the really interesting thing is like the forcing function that COVID created for brands that weren't taking digital and e-commerce as seriously. Now, if it was on the roadmap for down the road, like you really had to buy into it. So I think it was really beneficial for a lot of brands in that way, where they finally took advantage of this, understood the true value of it, and then worked it into their longer term strategy going forward.
I think it's so interesting how that so many brands were forced into taking that leap. From what we've seen, the majority have just succeeded with it, and it's super interesting when you look at tech and where tech sort of gets stagnant, and now having the option. I mean, listen, again, marketplace is awesome to have. Having that the all-in-one solution is never going to really work. I don't. Everyone I speak to, and I was at the hospitality show last week, and some of the point of sale platforms are all one ecosystem, but they also have an API and a marketplace. So you have sort of the option on that sort of side. But I think there's definitely a key thing when I speak to partners of ours and I speak to people we work with. One of the key factors is if you're choosing a piece of technology and it doesn't have the openness to be available to do what you want. Nowadays you could go on to agentic AI and ask to build a plugin to plug into your platform, and it will build you something. So I think there's even more nowadays. It's super important as well. Okay, so on to Hospo, because it's my question here. I quite like this one actually, so I'm going to ask this one as well. This one was like, Klaviyo is making waves in hospitality, an industry that hasn't always had advanced CRM tools. There are some really good tools, to be fair, but why focus here now? What was the unique challenges that operators are facing, and how do integrations like Toast and OpenTable change what's possible? And I have to say, I showed someone yesterday the OpenTable. I just went to your website and I was like, you've got to see this. I showed them the triggers that are
Mhm.
possible. But yeah, there's we know in Hospo that there's a challenge with data, and there are some great tools out there. Some have got the smart, some are just set and forget, and so on. So it's a really interesting point that we all know in Hospo that retail's ahead of us. Like we talk about the loyalty card in a grocery store that you've had for 20 years, and they know everything you spend, where you've been, and so on. And all our clients want is something similar, and that's missing. So what was the route in, and what was the decision?
Yeah, I think we were definitely looking at like where does Klaviyo go beyond retail and e-commerce, and fortunately, we had really good signals and almost a pull effect to coming into hospitality because we had so many brands either using the platform or reaching out to us saying we want to use Klaviyo. We've heard about it from other marketers in the space. We want to take advantage of this, and so being able to take that and as well as like our own research, it was really very clear as we looked across verticals because one of the areas we were trying to understand is where can Klaviyo go and solve a lot of the same pain points that we've been successful with retail and e-commerce, and hospitality is head and shoulders, above everything else. And for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned, I think it's been really eye opening for me, especially early on, coming from this e-commerce space that's further along, more open, playing nicely together with other tech stacks, being able to have these conversations to go to brands and say, okay, what do you actually need? And so we started within hospitality focused on food and beverage restaurant space technology. Now, most recently, launching 3 hotel integrations, which are also working really nicely together for hotels that have restaurants or wellness rig spa experiences on site. It's been very clear, and so the early success that we're having is exciting as we go deeper into this, and I think that's the message that we're conveying to anybody we're talking about. Like, this is a serious area for us going forward. But yeah, we feel really good about being able to solve similar pain points that we've done successfully in e-commerce, and I think it can have even a higher impact within the hospitality industry.
I was talking again to the same guy I saw yesterday, and showing them what you do. And I think one of the things that stuck out to me, which doesn't really happen at the moment in platforms, especially with the tagging. So if you've booked a table for a restaurant, now if I book a table for a restaurant and Klaviyo is doing the feeds of booked, cancelled, and so on, I would generically, in OpenTable, for example, just get a standard email from OpenTable that doesn't look very nice. It's a very simple, like, you've booked a table, great, thumbs up, thanks for, and a little maybe note from the restaurant. And it's just very standard and basic. But then you start to look at the possibilities of, well, hold on, if I turned that off and then sent it into a platform that understood my profile, that understood who I am, has more data points about me, then I received a beautifully designed email that's generated by the marketing team that makes me feel a little bit special. And then I thought um, well, hold on, if I'd opted in, if I'd double opted in, if I already opted in and I want to hear from the company, that brand, couldn't that confirmation email be even more tailored to me and upselling everything that you do? Because I'm already opted in. I want to hear about the brand, and I don't want to receive a generically basic email that doesn't give me anything. And I think that's one of the things that have really impressed me with the possibilities of what's going. I'd love to hear more about that, what potentially your clients are doing, or what you've seen working in that sort of side, because that's massive. I mean, Shopify, obviously retail does that the whole time, right? It's easy. You sign up, boom, down, you're sorted. Hospital is a bit different because you've got different sources, right? So you've got booking, they might have not opted in booking, but they have opted in Wi-Fi. So you've got different feeds coming in, and then allowing you to change that data, the data sources. Um, have you seen people now with the feeds you've got coming in from, and now you've obviously got the hotel integrations? Have you seen them really customizing the journey?
Yeah, we're starting to get some really great use cases, and I can share one with you today. I think this is particularly relevant for the restaurant space because their experience, there is such an offline online component, being able to capture that data as early as possible. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of restaurants, even if they're on the smaller side, go and have some type of like reservation system, or when you go in off the street, people asking you, do you have a reservation, even if it's totally open, because they understand the value of collecting that data. But one of the really cool use cases, to use your example of the open table integration that I built out with a customer recently, was you can create, that automated flow, like you're saying, and okay, has this person dined with us before? Okay, so you have 2 branches there. Then if they have dined with you, what is their overall number of visits or lifetime average spend? Do you segment that out and treat it as a VIP? And so within that, as we identify that there's like a VIP, if they put a note in that open table reservation of something that they want, make sure you do this when we arrive, or I'm coming for this reason, again, that can trigger an internal alert. So, okay, a VIP sent us a note on this booking, like make sure that we're paying attention to this. So I think that's the level of granularity that we're able to support to help those experiences, which then ultimately drive, lifetime value and better marketing relationships over, the course of time. So that's the really exciting part to me. And the more that we have integrated, from whether it's the POS system, or if there's a booking component, or, Wi-Fi capture for free while you're there in the property, all of that is ultimately creating a more robust profile that you can create this personalization and make it work, in a really efficient way through automation.
Yeah, I think it's just like, from just looking at it and thinking about it, my mind is going with exactly what you just said. Hub and spoke, right? It would tee off into which journey it is. We always see and speak to people about, don't just send one email to everyone. It's gonna fall on deaf ears. No one cares if you send the same email to 250 to 100,000 people. You've got to be clever with segmenting that data. And I had Vic Searle from Data Hawks on, and her podcast came out, I think, 2 weeks ago. And she said something really hilarious. She said birthday reminders. It's a great thing, birthday reminders. But you know what? If you're not contacting the customer the whole year, and you send a birthday reminder, it's like me meeting you on the street and saying, "Come on, Matt, let's go get married." Because there's no exchange, and it's been resonating in my mind. I've been telling everyone about it. It's so true. It's those touch points you want to use to then use in your business, to have the welcome journeys, to have the information, and then with the integrations that you have, you can then really start splitting out really easily those segments, right? The tags within the reservation system, the tags within the PMS system. There's so much you can do, and then no longer do you have the same email going to everyone. You literally have I guess you could have like 30 different hubs and automations, right, with different waves. I think that's a massive change in the industry that we haven't yet seen. Obviously it's here because you do it, but we want more people to be able to utilize that customization that's out there. And I think that's something that been on my before. I knew this. Obviously, I knew this was coming. I knew we were talking. So my mind's been racing about the possibilities of what else is out there as well. So in regards to, obviously, that I know that you've got the event tracking, right? So within the customer profile, that little piece there allows you to feed in so much different feeds of data. Can you talk about what that is? Because obviously not everyone here has seen the platform. I think that's probably the most powerful piece of the profile, right? Where you can actually sort of do triggers and have the events.
Yeah, when you think about the integrations that Klaviyo has across, any of our integrations, but specifically hospitality, what we are primarily focused on are two areas: the profile of the actual guest, and then the events with them over lifetime. And so on the profile level, it's whatever we're able to pull in from a specific platform, whether it be, an OpenTable, a Cloudbeds I've used. So that will aggregate overall time around preferences, location, all of that, and it can be updated. Also facilitate the ability to have custom properties. So if there's something that you're capturing as a business that is really important to you that has to live on there for segmentation and marketing purposes, we're happy to pull that in, and then you can have that show up as a custom property, which again adds further depth depending on where you're capturing it from. On the other side of that, like you said, the events piece. This is, for the most part, we strive with every integration to have to be a real-time sync. So like we were talking about pay at table, that happens. You immediately have that show up in Klaviyo via webhook, and you can take action on that. And every one of these events, it can bridge across all the integrations. So you'll see Klaviyo events, you'll see OpenTable events, you'll see Cloudbeds events, and it all just continues within there. So you get a really clear picture of that journey, and then that powers everything else that we're able to do. But that's absolutely an area where Klaviyo stands out compared to most other platforms, is the level of depth that we're able to provide on both profiles and events.
Yeah, I mean, we've obviously been playing with it, so it's really interesting to see, especially when you look at the branded events. So OpenTable, you have the little logo, so visibility-wise, you get to see it, and it's pretty clever. I think ideally we'd like our clients, and every client really that is listening, to be able to just be able to send an email but not have to worry about actually fully segmenting it, being flexible in those fields so that obviously it's already segmented, but sending that email, not having to worry about where the flow goes. Do you know what I mean? So that message, and then the information gets taken throughout. So yeah, it's really interesting. So quick question: the POS integrations, are you pulling in the sales data as well?
It depends on the integration. So some of them are actually better at others than, because you have to ultimately assign that to a profile. So if it's happening at like a quick service restaurant, finding a way to capture that person's information is very critical. We can identify it through a variety of ways, but if they're just doing the transaction, that's typically not as valuable as where the POS systems that actually will be able to link to a profile. That's key. And that's where, integrations like captive Wi-Fi or OpenTable are all really important because we're able to build it with that data. And then if it wasn't originally attached, once we have that unique identifier through email or SMS, then we're able to actually create it and make it usable from a marketing standpoint.
Yeah, it's really interesting to be able to understand the flow of data of coming in. Okay, so let's move on to next. So the future. So I'm actually loving my question. I don't normally ask these questions because I normally just close off, but this one's pretty cool. Looking ahead, what do you see as the biggest opportunities for hospitality CRM, like AI personalization or deeper loyalty? And on the flip side, what challenges around data or operations do operators still need to overcome?
Yep. Excellent question. I think I break this into two areas. I think about it from a strategic standpoint, and this has come from a lot of conversations recently of brands focusing on the top and the bottom of the marketing funnel. And I think this specifically because I've been working in hotels so much lately, but it's applicable to all of hospitality, is being able to drive those direct engagements and bookings, avoiding marketplaces, avoiding OTAs, and building that real relationship through first party data. So for things like that, we have integrations with Meta, TikTok, and Google that will help with your top of funnel strategy, integrating in that with Klaviyo. Then you can do lead ad capture to build those profile lists for the initial outreach, or actually, be able to send segments back out based on what works in Klaviyo to help with like things like ROAS. So I think those are really important at the top of funnel. In the post stay, post visit area, I think it's, how are you capturing reviews? Are you taking advantage of like word of mouth referrals in some kind of way in that post stay? Or how are you handling loyalty? Even if it's lightweight, understanding that loyalty can be a daunting thing for smaller brands. There are still lightweight ways to do that, whether it's segmentation in Klaviyo or some of the tools that we integrate and work with. Those are the two biggest like strategic areas I think I've heard a lot of pain around, where people acknowledge that they're important. They just kind of haven't really nailed it down yet. And that's where we want to be able to support either directly or through, integration partners. And then operationally, like you called out, I think there's a lot of growing to be done in the space. I've been really encouraged lately in like two or three brand conversations I've had where hospitality providers are taking a really thoughtful approach to their tech stack. So that's music to my ears because we've seen the success that it has in e-commerce. And like we were talking about, being able to work with platforms and either doing like a revamp or a build out of your initial strategy, picking the right tools that are at least going to be open enough so you can interchange parts to make sure that they all work together to achieve your goal. I think that's where everything is headed, and you need that flexibility. And I think that's also where you start talking about AI is if it's a totally closed off system, how are you going to incorporate AI into that in any way? So I'm really happy to hear that there's a lot of these brands thinking in this way, and that's definitely a part of the conversation we want to continue to be in and help drive and have an opinion on who's going to work well, and as we look for partners that'll work with us to help tell that story and drive value.
And it's quite interesting that there's a lot of platforms out there that, I mean, some people who want to start the loyalty journey, you can so easily fake loyalty, not as in fake loyalty, but you can program loyalty in without a loyalty platform. Someone who isn't ready for the journey yet to feed it in can utilize the tools that are out there in yours and other platforms by adding in those voucher codes, adding in the on click do X, so that there's some clever smarts you can do. So you don't necessarily know they've redeemed it, but they've clicked on it and then they've loaded that specific link, or they may have filled out that form, and then hitting those smart triggers that makes it actually feel like loyalty. We had a client of ours that was a quick service. They have loyalty now, but this is a couple of years ago. And they did this beautiful thing where you connect to you go in, you connect to the Wi-Fi, obviously ours, you connect to the Wi-Fi, and then 48 hours later, you get an email saying, thanks so much for visiting, and welcome to the Yoke Gold Club. Have a free coffee on us. All right. So boom, done. I was like, I tested it out obviously because I wanted to see if it worked. Pressed the button, got myself a free coffee, typed it in on the kiosk, got my coffee, and obviously they know the system. They know that I clicked the link, right, and used it. So 3 days later, we hope you had a great coffee. We hope you had a great experience. Have 25% of lunch. Really easy. Again, voucher, boom, done. I went, had my 25% of lunch. And then a week later, I got the email about us. So that just building the journeys, I think sometimes we talk about welcome journeys and it's some people don't always see it. And I think that's super important for any operator, whether it be retail or hospital or even in hotels, is to have that welcome journey in. And I think one of the nice things about when we talk about your platform is you know where they've come from, right? You know which data source it is. So if someone signs up on the website, you can kick off a different welcome journey that you can do it from Wi-Fi, from booking, or the pre and post. So there's some really clever things that I think that can be done. I'd wish more people would do it. Basically, that's sort of my
Yeah.
wish for everyone. It's not hard to do. So talk to me. So when someone sets the platform up, is the wizardry ready to go, or is it something that is guided through the process?
Yeah, so we're doing a lot in terms of what this experience looks like to make it as seamless as possible. One of the things that we've done now in the last year is with these hospitality integrations that we have and have developed, we're actually able to do what we've historically done in e-commerce now, where if you sign up for, the Cloudbeds or Muse integration or the OpenTable integration and connect it to your Klaviyo account, we have pre-built flows that are going into your flow library. So we've talked to customers and done our industry research to say, okay, here, 5 to 10 flows that we know are key to the pain points that your industry typically has. You can go ahead from the moment you integrate and set those up. You can make modifications to them. They're all very flexible, but we're handing you things so that you can get up and running from day one, which has always been core to what Klaviyo does. And so we're continuing to do that. We have, the ability to set your industry. So when you're seeing benchmarks around your performance in Klaviyo, it will compare you against a subset of our travel or hospitality customers, so that you can then really get an understanding. We're not comparing your brand against e-commerce brands or the whole platform. We're comparing you against how others are doing here, and so you can have really tangible insights to go and take action on areas that might need some focus or see where you're performing really.
So is that done generically, or is that done area? How does that look at? Are we benchmarking it? Is that just that industry and how you're doing against the industry, that specific
Yeah,
industry?
when you select your industry upon sign up, you're able to say, okay, I'm in the restaurant industry. So then it will compare you against everybody else that's identified within the platform as restaurant, and so on, throughout the other industries.
That's fantastic. Okay, that's really good to know. Okay, so we're coming to the end. So this is pretty awesome, to be honest with you.
Love it.
Opening my eyes to more. I'm really excited about the PMS stuff, which is super interesting because I mean, from booking hotels, some of it is just super clunky. Some of it's okay, but it's just not. I think the piece that you guys that I really like about is that it's a tracking piece. Every piece of that thing is fully tracked to understand the patterns, I guess, of how things are working. So I'll have a look into that. That's really interesting. I
Yeah.
think
I mean, I've
hotels.
been finding myself really going to the direct websites a lot more. Like as I've always kind of done it, but getting deeper into this, and then also seeing how much money that, brands are spending on these amazing websites for hotels, but you're not driving people there. Like
No.
you're doing so much, and these are great and really get people excited to want to book and experiencing it. So I think that's what's, very motivating for our team right now is like there's a lot of opportunity here to help people drive and owning that relationship with their guests than what they've been doing and kind of accepted as the norm through like OTAs.
Well, I suppose the tracking. I mean, right, as you said, you've got the integration through social, TikTok, Meta, and so on. So the tracking piece is even nicer because then you actually have the full flow. I mean, that's always been the challenge. There'll be a company that will spend X amount of ads, and then they'll want the report of how many bookings do we have. I don't know. The system says, "Oh, let me check the finance. We did really well this month." Well, that's because people just found us. There's no
Yep.
real, and that's always been really difficult for when we speak to brands. They were like, I've had challenges in the past where the external guy will come in and social guy will be like, spend all this money on ads rather than just testing a ton of money, but then not been, and then just showed them the figures for the reservation system. This is how well you've done. And they're like, this is the same as last year. And I don't understand. So at least the system allows you to do the full tracking piece to understand where it's come from. And then now you have the integration with the PMS. You're
Mhm.
able to then the full flow, right? So you'll get the transactional booking, and then really be able to let the customers understand. And I guess the same thing with Res, right? As the feed comes in from Res, you can then do that reporting. I think that's one thing where some of our clients struggle is the full tracking and transactional information of you send an email to 100,000 people. How many people have actually clicked the link? Great, you could do the link, but then majority of systems just stop there. And then you might be able to see someone booked 3 weeks later, but then the link, they may do something different. So it's really interesting. And we'd love more people to be able to understand the flow
Yep.
and to build that tracking in. It's just so difficult.
Yeah, we do a lot of focus on attribution. That's been core to Klaviyo from day one. And that's the metric you'll hear us talk about publicly all the time is Klaviyo attributed value. And so that's tied directly back to attribution coming out of the platform. And you can adjust that. We have really tight default windows, but you can adjust that based on what your brand priorities and preference are. And couldn't agree more. Like that's a super important part of this to know what's working. And so where to lean in and where you might need to, tighten some things up.
Amazing. Okay, let's see if this works. Hold on, here we go. There we go. There's my little round of applause. Thank you to Riverside. Thank you. It's super interesting, actually. I didn't, to be fair, I'd read the questions, but then I reread the questions when we started. You've been there for a long time. So it's really interesting to see how everything has changed. And it's a welcome to hospitality because there's always a need for better technology. Not that there isn't really good technology out there, but everyone I speak to compares the Shopify Klaviyo concept to why can't we do this? Thank you for bringing the opportunity for people to be able to do it because now they can, right? Now they can bring in the ecosystems in. So, final questions. Best restaurant, and it could be anywhere, obviously, not just here. So, best restaurant.
Yep. I went like 2 or 3 years ago with my wife up in Montreal, a restaurant called Cabaret Latin Fair, and it's a chef's tasting counter, but very thoughtful, amazing courses. But I love that it wasn't very stuffy. They have like a punk rock vibe to it, so they're playing like old punk rock music. Down in the second level, they have really cool like posters and different like street art. And so I thought the food was phenomenal, but the overall experience, and Montreal in general, I would say just has amazing restaurants and not too far of a drive here from Boston.
Nice. I love that actually. Not so like having the twist, right? It's like having a twist on high end, but with a bit of funk.
Exactly.
Love
It was
that.
perfect balance.
Amazing. Best burger.
I have my overall favorite, and then I have my current favorite. So overall favorite, I had with my dad when we were in Kyoto. It was a place called Wise Bar, and it was down an alleyway, but just like the most perfectly crafted burger, like perfect blend of like fat within the burger meat and then the cheese, like out of this world. Think about it, probably once a week. But recently, they just opened a location here in Boston. It's a restaurant called No One. They make Korean smash burgers. So they have 2 locations in New York, just opened one in Boston. Everything on their menu has been great, but I think I've been like 5 or 6 times with people from Klaviyo already. That one, if anybody gets the chance in either New York or Boston, that is definitely my top like typical favorite right now.
Amazing. Okay, and then best hotel. I know you had the honeymoon one, but I
That
don't
still
mind.
might be it. That still might be it, honestly. It was just such a cool experience. It's up there in the jungle on the river, so you hear this like amazing white noise throughout the day. I've never
Mm,
slept better in my entire life. You wake up, the sun's coming through the trees in the jungle. But yeah, I think it was just super serene. They grow a lot of things like on the actual property there for like
wow.
spices and herbs, and then like local people use it and come there and can plant. So yeah, I think that still, even though it was the honeymoon one, I will have to say that was probably the best
Yeah,
experience
it
of a
sounds
hotel.
mental. Was golf buggies driving around? Was it golf buggies as well? Was it like different areas?
They had
Yeah.
those. We did a lot of walking though. I mean, there was a lot of eating going on, so we tried to
Yeah,
walk as much as possible.
I can imagine. Okay, so I'm going to give you one more of these. There
Yep.
we go. So 2 questions for the next guest. Could be hospitality, creator, marketer, technology. Could be anything. So
Yeah.
two questions.
Yeah, I think the first one I have is I would ask somebody, what are the most valuable aspects of hospitality technology that brands should consider when they're making that selection? Kind of like I was talking about tech stacks. Like, be curious to hear what someone else's opinion is on that one. And then the second one, what do they think the most critical areas to focus on to drive guest loyalty and LTV? Like we were saying, there's a lot of personalization things, but there's even more when it comes to that. So I think you can take that in any direction.
I love that. It'd be really interesting. I'm actually interested to hear what their
I
responses
can't
are for
wait to
that one.
hear it.
Yeah, and that'll be awesome. Thank you so much. I really
Appreciate
appreciate
it.
your time,
Thanks, Adam.
and I'll see you later.